For the next week or so, we're going to be building a 6-part news site. In the end, we're going to try to build something fairly similar to Reddit, but we're going to be learning different concepts along the way. Now, this first one is going to be very simple, but it's just a good refresher of how do we pass down props, what are functional components, what are class components, and we're going to be building on this every single day. We've gotten you kind of started with a basic skeleton, and you need to fill out the rest, but it's written in a much better way than the other challenges. For News Site 2, you're going to grab all the stuff that you did for News Site 1 and paste it into News Site 2. And then News Site 2, you're going to do the same thing for News Site 3, then 4, then 5, and then finally you're going to get up to 6. Once you get up to 6, you're going to have the ability to create a bunch of different routes. You're going to have a search functionality. You're going to have logging in and logging out. You're going to have authorization for creating, reading, updating, and destroying articles as well. But everything starts off with day 1, and here's News Site number 1. So we have 3 components, and our job is to create the content that the component should render and handle the props that are being passed in appropriately. You can do functional or class, but we're going to figure it out as a group what we should do. My general recommendation, and this, I know that functional components pretty much just came out 3 months ago. If you're only rendering something to the screen, just text, go ahead and use a functional component. If you're doing stuff with state or using a lot of life cycle methods, you're going to use class components. Everything has been stubbed out as class components. If we want to change them, we can. I npm installed while you were on break so that we didn't have to wait a million years. I'm just going to run npm start. So this is running, this is running. While we're waiting, let's just take a look at app.js. So app.js has quite a bit of stuff in it right now. We're going to start removing things, and we're going to be moving stuff around. Well, let's take a look. Number 1, we're bringing in React and the component library specifically from that React npm package. We're bringing in news from data news JSON. Let's take a look at that. So inside of here, there's a folder called data. There's a news.json file. So it looks like this entire thing is just one giant 2,000 lines of just different articles that we found that we've stubbed out. We just basically made everything lorem ipsum because they were kind of upsetting in terms of the actual things that you can grab from a news site. So right now we've got an app nav component, an article teaser component, and an article component. If you go into newyorktimes.com, it follows a similar kind of pattern. At the very top, you have a navigation bar, so we call that app nav, so application navigation. We have a teaser. So the teaser itself is kind of like, it's the summary that you want to show out to the screen for people to be able to read so that I'm interested in clicking on this. And then we have the actual article itself that takes you to the actual article page. We have it all listed right here, and we're going to try to tackle this. So we have tests built in for you. So if you, at any point, if you want to see that you've done things correctly, just run npm test. But in the case that you have errors, you're going to need to run through these commands right over here. So component number 1 says article teaser. So the article teaser component is a separate component from app.js. If I jump over back here, I've got a whole bunch of stuff in state that I'm going to ignore for right now. When I've got the render, I'm going to get rid of this. I've got an app nav component that renders out an app nav. I have an app nav component h1 that renders out an app nav down over here. Then I've got the article teaser and the article teaser right over here. And then the article itself and the article right here. The first thing we're going to tackle is application article teaser. So the article teaser, which is found right over here in the middle, accepts the following props from app.js: an ID number, a title, a created date, and a handle title click. And you can always assume that these props are going to be passed in. So the article teaser, once it receives those props, you should display the title inside of an A tag. When you click the A tag, you should follow this.props.handle title click and the ID of the thing that you clicked on. Will arrow functions be useful here? The answer always is yes. So pretty much whenever you do anything, you might want to use arrow functions. And you want to display the created date in a P tag. So let's go back into the code. The article teaser takes in an ID a title, a created date, and a handle title clip. Where did these come from? It looks like it comes from this.state.article.id. So let's look inside of the state object of app.js. And state is nothing more than a class level dictionary of stuff. So it looks like state has a key called Nav Items. We're not worried about that right now. Oh, okay, it looks like this. And it also has an article, which has an ID, a title, an abstract, a byline, an image, and a created date. Where on earth did this come from? Random article index, random article.title. I don't know where that is. Probably at the top. Okay. Inside the constructor, which is the init function of every single class, we're going to do some calculations before state. This is why we have a constructor. If we didn't have to do any sort of calculations ahead of time, we would just do state equals. So since we're doing a few things beforehand, we're going to have that constructor up top. The constructor is going to take in some properties from component, and it's going to super those props. What this means is that component comes built in with some properties. I'm going to super them so that I always want to inherit the component's props from component. This is most of the time you can just ignore this because it's built in. But since I'm doing these two things above state, I need to have that constructor there. So it looks like I am creating a random article index, which is just going to be a number. I'm going to floor math.random times news.length. Where's news? News comes from the news.json. And it looks like there are a certain number of articles here. So I'm just getting some sort of random number every single time. And then from there, I'm going to access a random article from this list of news. I could also just do news at 0, just to get one random article. That random article has things like abstracts, byline, created date, multimedia. So that's what we're doing here. ID, title, abstract, byline, image, created date. We're keeping track of all the things that we need to from news.json. There's other things that we don't need, like des facet, which I don't know what that is. If you're into journalism, maybe you know. Item type, subtype. These are things that we may or may not need. So we just took out the things that we need right over here. Going back to article teaser, let's split the screen and bring over article teaser. I don't know where it's located, but I know article teaser is referenced. So if I go to the top and I look inside of article teaser, it looks like there's a components folder, an article teaser folder, and the article teaser folder has a JS file and a test file. Leave the test file alone. We've done that all for you. We're just going to grab that and drag it over here. Okay, this makes sense of why it's not rendering anything. So let's just make sure we're in the right file. I'm going to do H1 that says hello. This is article teaser. Save it. And let's just make sure that this updated. Okay, article teaser component, hello, this is article teaser. There was an empty div before, which is why it wasn't showing anything. So let's take a look. It says we're passing in all of these things, and we want to display it in this particular way. We want to display the title in an A tag. We want to have a E tag for the created date, and whenever you click on it, it should fire off this thing. So let me grab all of this and paste it at the bottom, and then just comment it out so we don't have to go back and forth. Okay, first things first, on the left I've got the parent component, which is app.js, and on the right I've got the child, which is article teaser.js. I want to display the title inside of an A tag. Kyle, tell me how I can display the title inside of an A tag.
So you would first put the A tag in there.
Let's put the A tag in there.
Yeah. And then, so I guess you would interpolate it.
Interpolate.
Inside of there. What were you asking for?
I wanted to, line 15, I wanted to display the title inside of there.
The title of the article?
Mm-hmm.
Title.
Yep. I know I'm going to have title, but how do I access title?
This dot states.
Nope. So state refers to app.js, but when I pass properties from one component, app.js, into article teaser, I pass these in as props. So props is something you inherit, state is something that you have. Article teaser doesn't have state right now.
So, article teaser. Or yeah, oh yeah, props.
Yep, that's all it is. This.props.title. That's the only way that I'm going to reference it. So there it is. It shows up right there. All right, so actually, let's just tackle this bottom one because this one's easy. Chad, tell me what to type here. Display the created date in a p tag. Yep. Let's just see if that works. Oh, it shows up right over there. It's kind of ugly. We can fix that later, but it is showing up. So we did pass in something from app.js into article teaser, and we're referencing that here. When the title is clicked, it should call this.props.handleTitle click this.props.id. So cool, it's already done for me. Hank, what should I type to handle a click? Okay.
That'll be,
what's the event handler for clicking? Yep.
So.
All right. And then I will do an arrow function all the time. And I'll just run this.props.handleTitleClick. HandleTitleClick is over here, and I can access it from this.props because it's being passed down. It expects me to pass something in. So it's this.props.id, which is also passed in over there. So if all works well, and I click on this, it should console log the article ID that I'm clicking on. So let's see if this works. So if I click this, it should console log a number. And it does. Any questions on article teaser? This is where the href tag part of the A tag is like when I click on this link, where should I go? And right now I don't have a link yet, so I just put a hashtag there. And if you take a look, there's that hashtag right at the very top. And when I hover over it, there's that hashtag right there. I think so. All right, so do you think article teaser should be a functional component or a class component as we look at this? Functional, why? It's not, class is really, like, you don't want to bloat a lot. The idea here is that you don't want to bloat anything. So you don't want to have a ton to do with classes if you're just going to be displaying text out to the screen. So let's change this into a functional component. Article teaser.
When do we start to worry about the effects of stuff being
when your app gets bigger. That's all. That's really it. Yeah.
So right now we're just displaying article teaser and that's functional. But say we wanted after 5 seconds or so for it to be a reel where we display the next article teaser or another article teaser.
Yeah.
That would need state, so we'd use a class component at that point, or would we still have a function?
The thing you're describing, you probably want state, so you probably change it into a class. You can also handle that directly from app.js by passing the article into here. So to avoid, let's actually just change this real quick. So since it's no longer a component from React because it's not a class, I'm just going to change this to function, article teaser. It's not going to extend from component. Function article teaser takes in an argument. And let's see, I don't think we need a render function anymore. I think it just needs a return. Okay. It looks like I need to pass in some props. It's not this.props because it's not a class anymore, so I'm going to get rid of the this dot. And I can just pass in props like this. I think that's it. I think that's all I need to do.
You don't need to name the props or anything?
Nope, because I can pass it in as whatever I want. So article teaser is going to receive a dictionary of properties. I can call it props, I can call it fart, and it'll still work. Still works. I can also click on this 1,000 times and I get that number 10 to show up.
So yesterday, when the guy was here,
yep,
we were like
Yep.
And stuff. Why was that? Because it wasn't passing anything.
No. So what he's doing is called destructuring. So I just wanted to keep it as close to the original as possible, but I'm going to teach destructuring now. So fart, which is so poop. Oh, oops. I use poop quite often.
I've noticed it.
Yeah.
That's like your example.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah. So props right now is a giant dictionary of stuff. The key is ID. The value is this.state.article.id. The key of another key, another key inside this dictionary is title. Another key in this dictionary is created date. If I want to avoid all this verbose props dot, what I can do is I can destructure the props in the top. What this means is that I will create a dictionary with ID, title, created date, and handle title clip. And what this will do is it will read in the entire dictionary, grab the key that says ID and save it as ID. Grab the key that says title and save the value as title. Grab the key called created date and so on. So it makes for a little less code. Instead of doing props dot, I destructure it using this particular method up at the very top, and then I just reference those individual variables down over here. And if it all goes well, this will still remain the same. Still works. We've only got 2 more, so let's take a look at that next one. Article.js. The article component should accept these following props, and we want to display it like this. So we are given a title, created date, abstract, byline, image, title, abstract, created date, and the title, abstract, and created date props will always contain something. Image and byline may be set, but they also might be not there. So we need to be able to account for that. So let's figure this one out. It looks like, let's open up article. Right now we've got another article right here. Article is equal to this.state.article with a spread operator. So instead of doing, the idea here is instead of typing out ID, title, abstract, byline, image, random article, multimedia, and created date, I don't want to type all those things here because I'm lazy. So I'm just going to grab all the contents inside of this.state.article and just spread it across there. This, by doing it this way with article, and I'm passing in this dictionary of props, I'm basically just going inside of here, taking the contents and spreading it across. It's so much easier because the other this, here, let me just show you. This is shorthand for equals this.state.article.id. Title equals this.state.article.title. Abstract. You get the idea. Like you have to type that all. It's a lot of stuff that you need to type in order for this to work the way that you want it to. Or you can just use the spread operator. 3 dots. The thing that you want to grab the dictionary that you want to grab the contents of, and then it'll just spread for you.
We wouldn't use the spread on a teaser because we're not using all of the things.
We're not using all the things. We're very selective. Okay. This one I'm passing it a lot of stuff wholesale.
Okay. If we got lazy though, like on the spreader, spelling
it would still work.
Yep.
Yeah. So Nick's question was, if I wanted to be super lazy and I wanted to just grab the stuff, I could technically do, and I believe this still runs. So let's check that. So it looks like it still displayed everything correctly, and it still console logs the way that we want. But it's one of those things where you don't want the components to know too much information. You only want it to know exactly what it needs to know. All right, so inside of here, let's jump back and copy this. And we've got a class for now. We comment all this. And it says, I want to display the title inside of an H1 tag. 1.
H1.
H1. How do I access the title of the article?
Is props.
Props?
Title.
Let's see if that works. Hey, right over here. All right. I want to display the created date in a p tag. Hank.
P tag.
P tag.
It's not
Okay. Karen, this one gets a little bit more tricky. If the byline exists, display it in an H2 tag. How do I check whether or not something exists within JSX? That is a good question. All right, so the way that I would do this one is I'm going to do this.props.byline and a question mark. You can't do if else. You have to do ternary operators inside of JSX. You can't do if. You can't do multi-line. It has to be one single line, unfortunately. So if this question, it's like if age is greater than 21. Oh God, this is sorry.
If you really need to do multi-line, you can just take it out of the function and then
So this is basic JavaScript. If else statement. If your age is over 21, say hello. Otherwise, say goodbye. This is long form. The short form of this one is age is greater than 21. Console.log hello. Else console.log bye. Line 21 and lines 15 through 19 are the same thing. So the question mark is if. So it reads if this thing, then do this, else do that. This is called a ternary operator. It's symbols just to shorten down code. So if the byline exists, then I want to display it in an H2 tag. So if it exists, then at that point, I'm going to do an H2 tag.
So the ternary operator is best for when you have two options, but they're not true or false. If it's true or false, you can use the shorter one, like true or false and this. So if it's like false and something, then it just doesn't exist. If it's true and something, then it's something.
Yeah. Can we see that? Yeah, what Mike is talking about is this is one way to do it. So if the byline exists, display it in an H2 tag. Otherwise, display nothing. This is one way. So let's just see if this works. There's that byline right underneath here. It's the I don't know what a byline is in journalism, but it's this section of the news set. Byline. The person who wrote it. Okay, got it. So this is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just that. Remember we had true and true, false and false, false and true? Remember that dating thing that I did on the first date? If you're having a good time on your date and your date is having a good time, you're having a good time on your date. If either one of you is not having a good time, if I'm having a good time and my wife's not having a good time, it's not a good date. So that's what's happening here. If this exists, this will always evaluate to true. So it's going to be true and true, so this line will execute. If this executes to false, false and true will execute to false and won't do anything. And it still works exactly the same.
But that's for like if it's there or if it's not. If you want like A or B, then ternary.
Yeah.
Ternary.
This one.
Like taking advantage of the fact that it doesn't value.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right. So second thing.
What is that? Does that have a name?
No.
Okay.
That's just an expression.
It's just an expression. Yeah. You can do it with or as well.
So it's going to show no matter what.
This one will show. This one will break all the time. So you want to use the.
Be careful though. This.props.byline needs to return a falsy or a truthy thing. Use other things like I don't know, like numbers or something.
It'll always evaluate to true actually. Yeah. Existence is true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. I'm saying like you're using something other than that. It needs to evaluate truly or false.
Yeah.
Because it won't work. They're always like numbers. You need 0 to be false, and every other number would be.
But if you have like for JSF for right here, if you always have an element tag, it would probably always be true. So it would always at least for the second part would always have.
Well, what if you were passing like I don't know like everything in one tag and another tag you're passing specific things, then you forgot and you're like, oh crap, I think I have a byline one. No.
This won't evaluate to true at all in that case. So if you pass something in for this props byline, it'll execute the second half. This is the thing that gets returned. Same thing with over here. If you have an image, then display it in an image tag where the source should be the this.props image. So if you don't have an image, and some articles just don't have images on them, then this won't even evaluate. But if it does, then I'm going to return the second portion here. I believe that's all we've got for this. So there's an image right there with it. It's a camel. If I refresh again, there's Mr. Trump. Most of them do have images, but not all of them. Cool. Let's move on to this last one. Actually, before then, should article be a functional or a class component? Look inside of here. What do you think we should do? Functional because it's not really doing anything. So same thing as before. Remove this. Change this to a function. A function takes in some arguments. Get rid of the render. I wish there's no more this, so get rid of this. I'm going to be passing in props. And I believe this should still work as expected. Still works. Looks like props dot is really annoying, so let's deconstruct all this. I'm going to do, looks like I need title, created date, byline, and image, and abstract.
If you have a really long function that you didn't write, you want to go through and do each one individually.
Yeah.
So like command D, props dot title, and then do all of those, and then command D all of the rest.
Yep.
Individually.
Let's see if this works. Still works. Now it's a functional component within 10 seconds.
What does the construction look like for that? Should it look at each one of them? If you were to do it the way that Mike's saying, like if you have a really long line.
So what he's saying is if you, so the way that I had it before is that it's a pretty small thing. It's like this is all the stuff that's getting printed out to the screen. So I can see very quickly that I'm only referencing props.title one time. But he's saying if you have a lot of props dot something, you want to highlight the whole thing and press Command D a bunch of times to get all the titles so that you're not missing anything.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the guy yesterday who was saying how you can do like if your props get too long,
yeah,
like you can just construct them.
Below
or something.
Yeah, another one is I forgot where it goes.
Put them in there as you need them. Don't just
isn't it just
all the things you think
const? I think it's just
no. But he was saying like that list, like it can get really long.
Yeah.
So say you have a really long list, and so you use this. Okay.
You change this whole thing to props.
And you can make it multi-line if you want.
You could, but it works like this as well.
Okay.
The idea here is that if you have if it's a short number of props, go ahead and put it over here. If there are 5 or 6 props like this, you could put it on a new line.
But you can also put it
You could put in a function. You can put individual ones if you want, but this is another way of solving it. Last thing, app nav. The navigation bar should accept the following props. Handle nav click, which is a function. Will arrow functions be useful here? The answer is always yes. And a bunch of nav items. So the app nav component should return a navigation component that has A's as children, 1 for every item in the this.props.nav item array. So essentially what we want to do is we want to map through this.prop.nav items to create a bunch of A elements. And the data structure looks like this. We got label and value. Let's jump into app.js. Looks like there's an app nav component at the very top that I'm going to open up here. Yep.
Nav automatically gives you the index.
Map gives you access to the index.
Access to the index. Does for each, is that the difference between that and for each?
For each and map are very similar. Map gives you access to the index. For each does not give you the access, but it gives you access to the element inside the array. And map returns you a new array, and for each does not. So it looks like I've got an app nav component. App nav, this thing right here, takes in two props. One of them is nav items, and the other one is handle nav click. Handle nav click just takes the thing that you clicked on and console logs it, so that's pretty easy. Same thing that happened down over here. And then nav items is this.state.nav items. So let's scroll up to state and find nav items. Oh, it's right here. It's this giant array of things. So I just want to display that out to the screen. So I'm going to, inside of this nav, I'm going to do this.create nav items and execute it right away. I'm going to create a function called create nav items. And I'm going to create an output equal to an empty array, return the output at the bottom. I'm going to iterate over each one of these and create a link where the label is what shows up on the screen, and the value when you click on it is going to show up in the on click. So for loop for let on. I'm gonna, when I click on it, I want value to show up over here. On click.
Oh, on click.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I equals 0. I is less than this.props.nav items.length. I plus plus. Oh my god, I have no idea. Output.push. I'm going to create a tag. It looks like I'm going to display this, so maybe this.props.nav items at index I dot, what is it? Label.
React or JavaScript that you can put HTML into it.
It's React.
That's good.
Oh, whoops. Let's see if this works. All right, so I've got home, opinion, world, national. So everything looks like there's something there. Let me make this a little nicer looking by maybe putting a pipe and then a space. Okay, so it looks a little nicer now. When I click on it, I want to be able to fire off the handle nav click. So I know that I'm going to need an on click here. Maybe I'll say an href goes to nowhere. And when I click on it, I want to fire off a fat arrow function. This.props.handle nav click on 64. And I'm going to pass in this.props.nav items at i.value. See if this works. So it looks the way that I want it to look. And when I click on New York region gets console logged out to the screen, national, world a bunch of times, business, opinion, and home. So we're basically just hooking up our components today. We're learning how to pass props from one component into another. And there's a few things I want to refactor. One, obviously, this should not be a class-based component. It should probably just be a functional one. And it looks like I'm referencing this.props.nav items at I twice, which is kind of stupid. So I'm just going to do nav item equals that. And I'm just going to replace this whole thing with nav item. Nice. Okay. Let's just verify that this still works the way that we expect. finally, we're going to change this whole thing into a functional component. So I remove the component portion. I change this to function.
So this one, as long as it's not doing anything with, this is doing more than just rendering something out. Because what's it called?
It actually just is rendering out stuff. Oh. Yeah. Create nav items equals that, and then fat arrow. Create nav items is not defined.
I think this is a
This
const.
No const here, right?
Oh, sorry.
Cannot read props of undefined. Oh, whoops, I forgot. Needs to take in some properties, take out this.
I think I'm going to start with functional. After the class, get all that.
See if this one works. New York region, business, world, national. So the app, we created this, we changed this into a functional-based component. Functional-based components take in some properties. I created a function within this function called create nav items. It's a fat arrow function. I'm iterating over that same props that was passed in before, but instead of referencing it with this dot props, I'm just doing props because this refers to classes and we're in function now. And the main thing that happens at the bottom is I'm returning out a navigation bar where I'm calling create nav items, which is this method right over here. Questions on new site?
At the end of it, well, actually, sorry, just during it, can we style it any way we want?
Any way that you want. Yeah. If you don't like my beautiful CSS, then you can do whatever you wish.
I'm not going to trash talk. It's just different.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm going to stop the recording here.